I want to be doing this professionally. Like it to me, there's maybe a little bit of ego in it. It's like, but if I'm running sail to ski trips professionally, it just is like I've achieved something beyond just going out and doing it for fun.
Greetings, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Andy. It's Friday, March 28th. Happy birthday, Katie, if you're listening. She's my younger sister, although I highly doubt she's listening. I can say it to the world anyway. It's Friday. I'm leaving on Tuesday to fly to the Galapagos to join Falcon for like 7 weeks. This is going to be one of the longer stretches I've been away from home since Axel was born, and it's harder and harder as he gets older. Ben and I talk about this in the interview today. This actually was recorded a few weeks ago when I was in London very briefly. And yeah, it's tough. I got a lot to do this week. Always, tying up loose ends. I'm running the entire business. And then to be out of touch for 7 weeks, I got to make sure that, the lights are going to stay on when I leave. And we've got an awesome team to make that happen, led by, of course, Mia, who's back in mission control, also with Axel. A couple things in this episode. We touched on, Ben actually got to read a new announcement that just went out this day about we were going to do a passage to Antarctica with Skip Novak, of all things. Super cool. For a variety of reasons, that trip is not happening, at least not next year, like we described in the newsletter and what Ben and I talked about. So that's just a note that if you get excited hearing about that, hopefully we're going to do something like that in the future, but it's not happening next year. And there's a whole story behind it, but I'll tell that another time. And then, when you hear this is the first episode of the new season that's going to not come out for about 2 more weeks after I'm recording this, but the 2027 Falcon calendar should be live on the website by then. And we're coming back to the Atlantic. It's kind of like a homecoming tour of all of our favorite places. We're going to hit Key West. We're going to hit Bermuda a couple times. We're going back to the Azores. We're actually going to sail with Arc Europe, the rally, which we haven't done since 2017. And then we're going to head up to Oban in Scotland. We're going to go from Oban to the west coast of Sweden to Marstrand and bring the boat all the way into Stockholm to where as close to where Mia and I live now as we can do. We're going to have a bunch of open houses both in Annapolis and in Sweden. This all feels very far from now because we've still got 2 seasons in the Pacific to do. But if you're looking to sail in the Atlantic in 2027, those trips are now available. So check them out on 59-north.com/2027. Also exciting that when I'm gone, coming the next few episodes, Mia is going to be doing these pre-intros. I just gave her a little lesson on how to use the podcast hardware in my absence. So I'm excited to hear how those turn out and what you think of that while I'm at sea. All right. I'll be checking back in from Falcon, probably from the Marquesas the next time you hear from me. Until then, hold fast. This season of On the Wind is sponsored by Weather Routing Inc., aka WRI, 59 North's longtime weather routing and forecasting friends. Personally, my relationship with WRI goes all the way back to 2008 when I first started working with World Cruising Club on the ARC Rally. WRI were then and continue to be the official weather routing forecasters and partners of the World Cruising Club events, and it was only natural that we continued working with them when we started 59 North. WRI is run by a bunch of true weather nerds, and I mean that in the best possible sense of the word. Their team of forecasters is as dedicated to weather as we are to sailing and seamanship, and no matter how comfortable I get with analyzing my own weather sources, it's nice to know that we always have the professionals looking over our shoulders. For the boat owners out there or anyone crewing on a passage, WRI can provide customized routing and forecasting tailored to your own boat and your own sailing style. I find their service most useful for helping us find good departure windows. To learn more and sign up for WRI, go to WRIWX.com and tell them that 59 North sent you. That's WRIWX.com. This season of On the Wind is also sponsored by BoatHowTo.com, an educational website co-founded by longtime friend of the pod and sailing tech guru Nigel Calder. Nigel, Jan, and the Boat How To team teaches you how to be self-reliant on the water and save money by fixing things yourself. Boat How To currently offers 2 in-depth courses on marine electrical systems and marine diesel engine maintenance, both Nigel's area of expertise. And in fact, our own Adam Brown, bosun at 59 North, has been exploring and enjoying both. By now, almost 3,000 students from 85 different countries have taken the Boat How To courses, and various boat building schools have integrated the courses into their curriculum. All 59 North sailing staff have access to the course as well, and if you're a member of our quarter deck, you get a special discount on the courses. There's no better way to master your boat's systems. Check out the courses at BoatHowTo.com. That's BOATHOWTO.com. You're listening to On the Wind, my podcast about offshore sailing. I'm your host, Andy Schell. Ben Doerr, longtime friend of the pod and founder skipper at Sail Bainbridge in Seattle, returns to the show to spin some yarns. This episode is really a catch-up between me and Ben. We haven't spoken in a long time. I was like, hey, we should have a chat. And then I was like, hey, we should record that chat. And this is a wide-ranging episode on everything from sailing and skiing in Alaska on an open 60 to being away from home when you've got a young family, which I will be when this episode airs. We also briefly touched on Ben's new Sail to Run project in the San Juan Islands, and you can check out Ben and all of his offerings on sailbainbridge.com. Enjoy.
We're doing it. We were texting, and I was like, dude, we got to catch up, and then we're like, we got to record the catch up. This is kind of how we do this. So,
yeah.
What's new, Ben?
Man, well, let me first start. I have to say, this is like this podcast, listening to this podcast, I just have to tell you, has been an incredible respite for me in the last few weeks. Like it's a little chaotic in these United States. If I keep my eyes lower than the horizon, like life is pretty good. And I unplugged from social media, putting my head in the people say, you can't put your head in the sand, you got to stay informed, but I need a break. So I'm getting a little less informed. And I've just been listening to your back episodes that I haven't caught up on. And it's been a delight, man. Like this podcast is a beacon of light in a dark time. So I just had to tell you that because I remembered how much I enjoy listening to it. And it just was, I don't know. It's really come through for me this week for sure.
Well, that's cool. And, this podcast tries to be apolitical and bipartisan and all the rest. But I have to ask you, did you maintain your connection to the internet long enough to see the bipartisan memes of JD Vance from the Zelensky meeting? Because if you didn't, you got to log back on. Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God. It was the best part of the internet in the last 3 days. Oh God. It was from both. It was so funny and everybody was in on the joke and it was just phenomenal. So I'll give you the gist of one of them that I actually sent you, because this is how we communicate. We communicate via sending memes to each other on Instagram.
Right.
One of them
I've been off Instagram.
Exactly. So one of them at the tail end of this series of JD Vance memes was basically said, the internet, or what was it, like 100 years from now, historians are not going to actually know what JD Vance looked like because there were so many images of his face going around that had been doctored. One of which was as the blueberry girl from Willy Wonka. It was so funny. You got to, when you log back on, do yourself a favor and start with the JD Vance Zelensky meeting memes, because they are just internet gold, comedy gold.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Hey, Andy, let's try turning the video off. I love to see your beautiful face, but we're getting it's a little glitchy here.
Video off.
Let's try that.
Let's try this.
Video off. Yeah, let's try that. I can see you with your peace sign.
So in real life, what's happening?
Man, kind of a lot. We haven't talked since before my Alaska trip last spring, a year ago. The sail to ski trip in Alaska. That was pretty epic. We had, I don't know even where to begin, man. It's been a minute. You and I have not really caught up, in any real way in, I don't know, really this year, probably, right? I mean,
no, definitely not in
last
2025.
year.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm still running my sail business. I've got this little boat Toki. That's a little Tolman skiff, a Tolman 2023 that I'm running as a dive boat, and not so much, a little bit of recreational diving with the dive shop here, but that's not like a real cash cow or a ton of business, but running it for some kelp research, really kelp restoration research that we're working on that I've gotten in with Puget Sound Restoration Fund, so I can tell you all about that. I'm also running that boat around in the winter for some photographers, which has been real fun, getting out and trying to see wildlife and stuff. And then sailing business, just getting, the boat the True didn't get any yard period this year, so she's been in the water and ready to go. And we've sailed a bit this winter with clients, and we're kind of getting into it now. Not really into the season, but kind of the preseason stuff. And I took a job looking after a big steel expedition yacht, power yacht.
Oh, wow. What does that mean? Looking after, doing maintenance?
Kind of the whole gamut. I mean, we can start there. That's kind of the newest thing. I got a call from the previous owner of the yacht. Well, actually, so to take it even further back, I'll tell you what the boat is. It's a 1963 big old fish boat hull, basically Art DeFever. And people are familiar with DeFevers. This is not a DeFever like you can imagine. This is not a production boat, but it was drawn by Art DeFever. He also drew the tuna fleet, like a bunch of the big tuna boats back in Southern California. And they were like, super wealthy tuna fishermen. And a bunch of them came to Art and said, "Hey, we like our work boats. Can you make us a cruising yacht for the family? That's based on the same hull and some of the same systems and stuff, but we'll run it as a yacht." And he designed 3 of them for 3 different captains, and 3 were built. And this is one of them. And some really cool folks, Bill and Michelle Bressler, bought the boat, 20 years ago, and brought it back up to Bainbridge Island and had it on their dock, and spent the whole time rebuilt. I mean, they spent about 10 years refitting it, I think. And then they cruised it a bunch, Haida Gwaii, Alaska, all the stuff up here inside Passage, BC, all that stuff. And and then basically they went to sell it. They're retired and they were deciding to get out of the boat, and they came to us and said, "Hey, we'd really like you to have the boat." And I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Okay." And they were selling it for a pretty reasonable price. I mean, it was like under 500,000, but like I didn't have anywhere close to 500,000. You know what I mean? Like that was not in my budget.
Right.
So and this is right when we were looking at moving off Topaz, looking for a new boat. I mean, the timing was insane. And he's like, "Well, you can keep it on the dock for at least 2 years, like mortgage free." But he's in the next harbor down. We were like, "Do we really want to live in Blakely Harbor? Like, it's gorgeous, but we're townies, we don't even want to be on the south side of Eagle Harbor here, because you'd have to either drive around or take a dinghy across. And we really like the life where our kids can step off onto the dock and walk to school and walk to town, all that stuff." Anyway, we considered it, mulled over it, thought about selling the house to make it happen, because we've got this rental property up the way. And we were just like, we talked to a financial advisor, and they were like, "I'm sorry, what? No, you're not selling your house to buy a yacht you can't afford to keep." And I was like, "That's all right, you win." So we didn't buy the boat, but fast forward 2 years, and the previous owner, he had sold it to a really cool guy from Texas that lives in Austin, runs a big construction company, and absolutely adores the boat, has some property here on Bainbridge, and really cool guy. But I had not yet met him. And here, hold on, pause for a second. I got to get my dog out of here. She's making noise. Paused. So yeah, Bill had sold the boat to this guy, and he was still caretaking it and keeping it on his dock. And he took on the job caretaking the boat. And I got a call in December, and he was like, "Hey, I'm ready to get out from under caretaking this boat. Do you want to do it?" He's like, "I haven't made any other calls. I think you'd be perfect for it." And basically what that entails is like managing the program. It's like what needs doing on the boat, running the boat, using the boat a bit, getting it off the dock and putting it on, putting the engines under load, making sure that fuel is in the tanks it needs to be in, and moving fuel and water around, whatever it needs, ballast and balance and all the things, and maintenance of anything in the engine room, from the, compressors to it's a pneumatic boat. So it's like, 2 different compressors, and making sure the engines and both generators are in good nick, and keeping the house of the boat in good nick, and keeping the decks, not only clean, but managed well, and managing all the things. Yeah. Yard period. I have not managed a yard period yet, but we're going to haul out in the fall, and it's going to be huge because adding a bow thruster and doing a bunch of paint. And anyway, be a massive.
What do they do with the boat?
They keep the boat here in Eagle Harbor.
But do they use it?
Yeah, so he comes from Texas in the summer. Well, actually, he's coming up next week, and he'll be here for a week for, I guess that's spring break for them. He's got 5 kids, and they just have a great time with the boat. The first summer they owned it, they went to Alaska. But they come up for the summer mainly. They come up for the Texas summer. It's like May through July. And use the heck out of the boat. He loves it's so cool. He's the coolest owner. Like, I would not take this job. My buddy, I have another friend who you've met, John Giat, who's done like a lot. John and Becca have that big catamaran down in the Caribbean. John and Mia just crossed paths.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
So
like,
John's worked. What's that?
I'm just sitting here blank face, and you saved me there. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I could hear your blank face since we don't have the camera on. But yeah, John's worked for a ton of different like big yacht owners, and he's got a lot of experience, and he works for somebody now that he really likes, but like they're not all cool. Let me tell you now.
Imagine that. That.
And I don't know from experience, but I know from stories. And so, but I can tell you this owner is so flipping cool, and he loves the boat. Which is so cool to have somebody who's like, really wants to do right by the boat, and has given me, budget to work with. And it's a sweet setup, and it's a fun place to hang out. And it's a win-win because after I'll get to our driveline, but we redid the driveline on the tug. And Deb was like, you can't spend another penny this winter. So to get me away from my own boats, but still getting to tinker and work on stuff, but not have it be like, my own boat that I'm just spending money on and not making any money. So I'm getting paid and getting to work on boats.
There's a thing called, OPB, other people's boats. Like, a lot of people just like do that and don't actually own a boat. You and me are clearly not that in that category, but like that, that's an attractive sounding option there. Sometimes when you think about it, you can do fun stuff on other people's boats and spend their money.
Yeah, and the boat is so freaking cool, dude. It's a 70-foot. I think it's 178 pounds in the slings. Big old. It's got ice sheeting. It's like a big steel like expedition yacht. It looks right out of the 60s too. It's super classy. Classy lines and Portuguese bridge, and the big I don't know what you call them. They're almost like buttresses down the side decks. With the overhanging top deck, and it's just like it's a really, really cool looking boat, and real fun to operate.
Man, you just said just in describing the boat and the setup, and your kids stepping off the dock and walking to school. Like, I am so pleased to hear that is your lifestyle. I was gonna say jealous, but I'm not jealous. I'm happy with my lifestyle as well. But like that, that you live in that kind of a community is. You and I talked about this last time. I think when we had the last time you were on the podcast is when I wanted to buy a motorboat to live on. I wouldn't say I'm over that, but that is not going to happen. It's not realistic. But I just think it's so cool. It's so cool that you can do that, and like the fact that you said you were sailing in the winter and you're boating in the winter, like it's like the freaking water is frozen where I live. Like, you can't do that. So I find that really,
I didn't think about
really
that.
Neat.
It like freezes up in the archipelago.
Yeah, you can't. Not so much in the outer archipelago. It depends where you are, but where we keep the boat, our home harbor, which is like pretty far inland. I mean, your people are ice skating on it for the winter. Like, I was out walking around on the ice with Axel last week. Like, it's like, people. It's pretty cool. You can go like. There's guys out with like these long distance ice skates and kites. They're basically like kite skating, like kiteboarding,
Oh
but
wow.
on skates,
Yeah.
which is pretty neat. So it's a different scene, but it's like, yeah, you know, I think it's really cool that you have that kind of community. Like you're in it. I love that.
Man, I love it, and thank you, and I love it. It's also like it goes so far beyond just like the physical setup to like the gal who bought Topaz from us is now like my running buddy, and you know, it's like the Chandlery is like 17 steps down the boardwalk. I mean, it's a little farther than that, but half a mile down the boardwalk. And the owner of the Chandlery is a close friend of mine, Bob Schoonmaker, and like a deep resource, like my entire career and ownership of boats, like just one of the best people I've ever known. And, you know, it's like, we just have like, and John and Becca spend the summers now on the, I mean, now they're wintering on their catamaran in the Caribbean, but they're on this aluminum resupply boat that's up in the harbor in the mooring field out here. And so it's like we got close friends here. I don't know. It's really cool. I love it. I absolutely love it. The dock we're on with the workboat with the sailboat doesn't have a gate. So it's just like people wander down here all day, every day, and you chat with people from all over the world. And it's superb. I love it.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. Well, I have a stupid story to tell you, not related to boating or anything, but I'm in a very charming little like old school British pub that has rooms like in it. So it's like, you know, it's like down the street from Heathrow Airport. I had to fly here today to get my you'll appreciate this, because my captain's license, my yacht master is organized by the British. So to get my license renewed, I have to get a physical, the medical thing, but I have to do it in England. Because like there's no doctors in Sweden that can. It's going to take me 5 minutes. It's so stupid. But anyway, so I flew here. I'm staying here tonight. My appointment's in the morning. I'll fly home tomorrow. But like it's a really nice day here. It's like 60 degrees, maybe 55 degrees. I don't know, a lot warmer than Sweden. And I walked out of the airport and I went to the taxi and I was like, hey, I need to go to the Ostrich Inn. It's called. It's like less than 2 miles from the airport. And the taxi guy's like, well, okay, it's a fixed rate to that little village. And I was like, okay, how much? He's like 40 pounds. I was like, what? I was like, no. I was like, I can't abide that. And he's like, oh, you can go get an Uber or whatever. That's going to be cheaper. I was like, okay, fine. So I'm walking to like where maybe an Uber can pick me up. And I was like, you know what? It's like an hour walk. Like it's nice out. I got a couple calls to make. I'll just walk. Well, I get like a mile, maybe a half a mile into my stroll and the sidewalk ends and I'm on like the shoulder of a 4-lane road. And I'm just like, this is not working. This country boy in the big city here, this ain't working. So I got off. There was like an exit. I got off on foot and went down, and it was like a dumpster rental place, and I called for an Uber there, and it was like a $6 Uber, and now I'm at my pub. But I tried to enjoy the sunshine and walk a bit, and it failed miserably.
Oh my gosh, that is classic travel stories. It's so good to do that shit alone because, dude, I can imagine like me doing something like that, like with Deb or with my family. She'd just be so mad, just so annoyed.
It's funny. That's the thing. Like all I have with me is my backpack. It's just me, and I had nowhere to be. Like my appointment's tomorrow morning. I was just coming to this hotel and gonna hang out and do some work. And I was like, whatever. I can kill an hour. I can go for a walk. So like in any other circumstances, I wouldn't even have attempted this. But I was like, whatever. I'm on my own. I got time to kill. And yeah, I tried, but it didn't work.
Yeah, 100%. Oh man. So do you leave tonight?
Tomorrow morning. I flew out today. I got here at like early afternoon. My appointment's tomorrow morning. I fly home tomorrow.
Okay. Just a quick turnaround. Not even really time for the pub. Maybe tonight, I guess.
I'm going to go there as soon as we're done recording here and have dinner at least. I already did have a beer. I did sent a newsletter out over a beer earlier. By the way, you're subscribed to our newsletter, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Did you see it? Do you want to? I sent it like literally 2 seconds before I signed on here. Do you want to check it and maybe break some news to people on the podcast?
Let's break some news, although they will have read it by the time this comes out.
No, maybe. It might be some stragglers.
Holy shit!
Hey, I knew you'd appreciate that.
Holy shit! Okay, for those who can't see my face because it's a podcast, 59 North is going south. Yeah, okay. To Antarctica in 2026. Yes, I'm yelling. I'm sorry if you're driving and I'm yelling at you. Wow. 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 Buddy,
Yeah, man. Lots happening over here.
this is
I mean,
big
this
news.
is we're kind of going to Antarctica. So I'll give you the details. So Chris Kobush, who worked for us for a couple of years, sailed. He was like our lead skipper on Falcon at the end there.
Yeah.
He used to work for Skip Novak, and then went back to work for Skip Novak, mainly because he had a kid, and like he was, sailing like 7 or 8 trips a year for Falcon, and was just away from home all the time. And he came to us, and he's like, "Hey, I gotta do something here." So Skip had offered him a job where he could sail a little bit and then manage the refit of the boat in Cape Town for like 3 months, where his whole family could be there. And I was like, "Of course, man. Like, I'm in that same position. I'm also trying to sail less. Like, I support you doing that. That sounds awesome." So he is in Antarctica, or just got back from Antarctica. He's on the boat right now down in Chile, and he called Mia and I this week, and he's like, "Hey, I've been getting a lot of like, when I post photos on Instagram, a lot of former 59 North crew are like, 'Hey, can we come sailing with you in Antarctica?' But Skip doesn't really do that because like the boat is so specialized. He basically charters it to like science expeditions and Nat Geo and stuff like that. So
The
Chris
bottom
is
line
like,
is he doesn't have to do that.
right, exactly. So Chris is like, "Do you think we could run a 59 North trip, just like we do on 59 North on Vincent?" And I was like, I think for sure. I mean, it's a lot. It's like 3 times more expensive than our most expensive trip.
Yeah,
but it's a 28-day thing. You get to sail to and from Chile. So you cross the Drake Passage twice. You get to sail past Cape Horn, and you get to spend 3 weeks in Antarctica. Like I think Chris said, 17 to 19 days in Antarctica or something like that on, the like all-time world's coolest boat.
The coolest boat ever.
Yeah, so basically that's the news that literally as we record this on Thursday, this will come out actually next week, so it'll be pretty fresh still. That's what I was doing before I talked to you, and trying to, we can't do it unless we fill it, because it's like I think something like $200,000 to charter the boat for this time period. So like we're not going to take a loss on it, obviously, but I figured like we'll give people the chance, and if we get 8 people that want to do it.
Do you know what the cost is
per person?
Like the
per person cost is $35,000.
Damn, dude, I want to be on that trip so bad.
So it's not cheap, but it's one of these once in a lifetime things that you can't really do. And if it's 8 people, we got to get 8 people to do it. And if we can do it, we'll do it. And it's kind of, we've been doing stuff like this lately where, I've talked about this before on the podcast, where we have Falcons in the Pacific for 2 years. All those trips are mostly they're all booked for this year. They're mostly booked for next year. And we're trying to see what other things can we dip our feet into without, spending another $1 million on a new boat. So we did this Swan 70 return transatlantic charter, which just finished last week. What a cool boat. That was a success. And now Chris came up with this. And of course, Nikki's doing the racing program, which is on chartered race boats. So it's like, well, can we do, the question is like, can we do a 59 North trip in the style and to the level of people's expectations on a boat that we don't own once in a while?
Probably with Chris. I mean, you know what I mean?
Well, this is exactly it. This is like, okay, well, if there's ever a case where we can definitely do this, it's this, because it's the perfect combination of 59 North and freaking Skip Novak, who's like, the legendary hero figure that is like the coolest guy in the world on the coolest boat in the world. So
and Skip will Skip be on board?
No, Chris leads.
Chris leads it, and then
Chris leads it, and then he's got a crew of. It's Chris and 2 others on board the boat, and then either myself or potentially someone else from 59 North, depending on my schedule. and then eight
Dude,
eight
clear
crew.
your schedule.
Well,
Okay.
I know,
You should have been on the Sail the Ski trip too. And also, if you do another one, I'm inviting myself right now. If you're on a Sail the Ski trip in wherever you go, Norway or if you go to Svalbard or whatever, I'm just inviting myself now. I probably can't go, but I want an invitation.
Well, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about this travel balance, because that's been at the center of my life, in a way that is not unexpected, but also not what I thought. So like I'm about to leave. It's March 6th as we record this. I'm leaving to go to Falcon on April 1st, and I'm going to be gone for 7 weeks. And like, fuck, man, 7 weeks is a long time. And like Axel turns 5 in 2 days, and he's just a different human being than he was when he was 2. And it's just a lot harder to leave.
Fast.
It's a lot harder to leave. It's like, I can't. It sounds so stupid when I say like, and I'm flying to Falcon. I'm going to the Galapagos. I'm flying to the Galapagos. My dad's coming along, newly retired. He's going to do it's the first time we've ever crossed an ocean together, sailing to the Marquesas. Then I take a break then we have a break in the Marquesas to fuck around. And then we do a trip. I do a trip to Tahiti via the Tuamotus. It's like the best part of this upcoming season. And I'm not that excited to go. Like I'm like more, what's more on my mind is the next 3.5 weeks that I get to be home and how much I can pack in with Mia and Axel. And it's just like, obvious. I mean, this is the most natural thing in the world to say, but it's like, I don't know. It's something I haven't had to contend with before.
I feel you. And my biggest thing, I mean, I'm not going away at all for 7 weeks. Like the most I'm going away for is 2 weeks. Like with these ski expeditions that I'm trying to do every year, which is not happening this year. But it's also like a balance of how it's harder too if it's not really earning. Like we haven't gotten these ski expeditions off the ground. That's like another challenge we have is like, okay, maybe I'm breaking even or getting paid a little bit out of it, but it's like, we're not into commercial mode with this. We're still in like research and development. And it's not going great, to be honest. We have to kind of pivot how we think about it due to permitting, both in Canada and the US, limits to permits. And
it's great when you try to do everything by the book, isn't it? It really,
you broke up there.
I said it's great when you try to do everything by the book. It really throws ice water on a lot of ideas.
You know what? It's chapping my ass, to be honest. And I came out of the gates in 2019. No, everybody cannot ski. You cannot do a sail to ski expedition in North America, south of Alaska. You just can't do it. And we were like hell, you can't. And we went and we did it successfully. And it started a career-long partnership with Helly Hansen, who's been very supportive of me and us. And we've had this great connection to a community of people who want to do this stuff. And my friend Andy Cochran and I have become super close in the process and love adventuring together. And we've continued to do it. But in 2020, I submitted an application to the BC Park Service, just a park use permit. You have to have it to pass through the park if you're guiding commercially. And I've been waiting ever since. It's 5 years. It's crazy.
That's like completely out of your hands. That's so frustrating.
And then I talked to the U.S. So then we go to Alaska and we do a trip around Baranof. We did another Canadian trip, kind of scouting trip, because we were getting impatient. We did another trip, which we learned a lot about how to run that trip because the snow line is so high in BC. It was like, okay, this is how we'll manage running trips up here. We learned a ton about kind of how to deal with the logistics of that. So it's good to go back there as like a friend trip and a just stellar crew. And then we put together much of the same crew to go to Alaska on my friend's boat, Dog Bark, which is an open 60.
Shia was on that with you, right?
Yes, Shia is a freaking rock star, dude.
Yeah, I know, she's the best. Shout out to Shia.
Shout out to Shia. I have never so adored somebody that I had not known but a minute. And I mean, I was in Japan, and it was like, the owner was like, I probably won't be able to go on this trip. And I was like, shit, it's a 60-foot boat. I haven't sailed before. It's fast. It's powerful. I mean, if people are following the Doerr project, the reason that Matt and Yanni have an open 60 is because of Dog Bark, Graham's open 60. They're good buddies. So at any rate, I was like, Shia, I had met Shia because you sent her to me, and she had come and done some like varnishing and stuff with me on True. And I was just like in Japan, middle of the night, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was like, wait, Shia has like more big boat experience than I do as crew, and she could come along, and she's not a skier, so she could like stay with the boat in the anchorage, and we'd have, and you're not like rock, paper, scissors for who can't ski that day.
Right.
And so, so I like messaged her, and she was like, yeah, like just so down. It was so fun. So yeah, we did that trip, and then I was so stoked, man. I'm like, Baranoff is probably not to run commercial trips, but because it's so rugged and so brutal to get to the snow, but it's doable. And the volcano just outside of the kind of creates the far end of Sitka Harbor, or not the harbor, but the bay there, is real skiable and real fun. And so I was like ready to buy a boat and keep a boat in Sitka and like start splitting my life, in Alaska, and maybe even do some winter trips, because it's such a quick jump out of the harbor to the volcano you could do that. And then I was like, well, it's a little bit tough, so let's also go check out Prince William Sound, where the snow comes, further down a lot of the year. And then we discovered in the process of trying to do a trip up there that like you cannot get a permit in like the National Forest Service everywhere pretty much on the West Coast here, or at least in Alaska, is like we're so backed up from COVID and various other budget cuts and things that like we will not even accept an application for permit. And I was like, well, when are you going to accept an application for permit? And they're like, minimum 4 years, but that's like, we can't tell you. We can't tell you. And I was like, this is an apolitical podcast, but I can tell you unequivocally, that's not going to get better in the next 4 years.
No, that's objectively true.
That's an objective truth, regardless of how you feel about it. It's not going to get better in the next 4 years. They're not going to suddenly get magical funding to hire a bunch of extra people to go through permits. So I cannot get a permit to operate anywhere in Alaska commercially on National Forest Service land. I probably could get a permit to take trees out, but all right, we won't get political. But no, we're not going to be able to get a permit to do anything up there. And so it's like, okay, what state lands are up there? Well, none. I mean, they're tiny, tiny. And then tribal lands are an option, but they also are like by scalable, sort of relatable size, there's just nothing there compared to the National Forest Service land. So we're kind of skunked on Alaska. So now I'm like back to Canada, where I already have a permit submitted, just like hoping they'll get through their process. They were doing a park use capacity assessment through all the BC parks, and that's what's put this on hold. So I can't even get the park manager to call me back anymore.
This begs the question, Ben, of like, people like you and me tend to try to like why can't we just go do something like this for fun? Like, why do we always have to make it a work thing? Like I know the temptation,
because I'm married.
Like, well, we have but you know what I mean? Like, there are certain things that we could also just do for fun. You said it yourself. You did it, you did the Alaska trip for fun. Like, I could go to this, if I go on this Antarctica trip, that'll be for fun for me personally, even though it's a business thing. Like, for me anyway, I have a hard time with doing that. I feel like, well, if I'm doing something, it has to be for work. For some reason, I feel like I need to justify that. Yeah,
I mean, I'm pretty quick to blame it on my partnership because my wife is definitely, Deb's more efficient and really smart about money and earning and all that stuff that I'm not. It's easy to like sort of pass it on to her and be like, oh, she puts the pressure on. But like I have that pressure on myself too. Like I want to be doing this professionally. Like it to me, there's maybe a little bit of ego in it. It's like, but if I'm running sail to ski trips professionally, it just is like I've achieved something beyond just going out and doing it for fun. However, we are pivoting because we can't get these permits and we want to do this. So I just ran into my friend, Dr. Rob Herlow at Ace Hardware yesterday. He's got a 50-foot steel custom boat built in New Zealand. The first, but actually when you and I met, when I first heard your podcast actually was on the delivery of that boat from San Diego to Bainbridge Island.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
It's a, I forget who designed the boat, but the yard owner down in New Zealand like designed this 50-foot steel slutter. Basically, it's a really, really cool boat called Capaz, and they took it to the Pacific during COVID, got all messed up, and eventually moved to, they had to go to Guam because the only place they could get in. All this stuff with COVID was a nightmare in the Pacific, and then they eventually ended up in Japan for a couple of years, and then the boat went from Japan. I was like, where's the boat now? He's like, well, we brought it to Kodiak. And I was like, far from skiing, good skiing opportunities. But I was like, where's the boat going next? And he's like, well, I'm going to move it down probably to Ketchikan by summer. He's going to go to Prince William Sound in July and scoot around there. And then he's going to Ketchikan. And I was like, dude, can we go to Glacier Bay and ski next spring? And he was like, yes. Like, where do I sign? So we're starting a discussion now about using Capaz for a friend trip, and I'll always, of course, be scouting it a little bit because if there's some way to work a permit system in Glacier Bay, that would be ideal. Because you can get onto the glacier, at the water and move your way. You can get snow down to the water in Glacier Bay, even in April.
Do you know what's interesting? What's interesting about what you just said about like your ego wanting to do it for something more than just fun for some reason? Like I obviously share that with you. I get that completely. But there's another side to that where I was reading a Yachting World on the airplane today, and they were talking about like the Cruising Club of America gives out their annual awards, which I simultaneously find just amusing, but also like jealous that I'm not part of that. You know what I mean? It's like, but they like, they're always acknowledging it's like only, recreational or whatever they call it, Corinthian. It's like non-professional people that they're recognizing. And yet like the degree of difficulty, like to take you and me out of it, you look at Nikki as an example. She just did the Carib 600 race after having done the Middle Sea race in the fall. She came second in the Middle Sea race in her class and third in the Carib 600 with a group of people that had never met before, 5 days before the race started. And yet, like, because that's commercial, stuff like that will never be recognized, even though it's arguably a orders of magnitude degree of difficulty higher than doing it with a bunch of professionals or just doing it with a bunch of friends recreationally. So, like, there's this weird kind of like inverse relationship between the motivations of people like you and me that want to do it professionally for like partly for ego, and yet know that we will never be recognized for any of those feats, no matter how amazing they are, precisely because it's professional.
Well, yeah, totally. And, I had also like the ego will continually be sort of like rechecked, like I had someone come to me after we did our sail to ski trip, and they gleaned just like bindings worth of information off of me about Princess Louisa access and all the things we learned from getting up there and skiing up there, and then went away and did a trip that ultimately ended up not successful in that they didn't get any skiing in, but they did get on the mountain, and it was an interesting story. And there's a narrative to all these things, even if you don't sort of achieve the objective. And it was interesting. Like I'm reading this story because Helly Hansen covered some people had been supportive of them, and I'm reading through this story, or maybe I think there was even a short film, and I was like, I didn't get mentioned.
Yeah.
I was like annoyed about it for the longest time, and then I was like, of course I didn't get mentioned. Who fucking cares, man? Like somebody asked you for information, you willingly gave it. That doesn't obligate anybody to be like, well, and Ben did it first with his group of intrepid travelers. Like, who cares? And we weren't the first to ski Princess Louisa anyway. There's like, when we got there, there was a group of these Canadian dudes who came down the trail who were just like, oh, bro, we're just out for a rip, eh? You know, like they just like not looking for any recognition other than just three guys that were on a friend's janky sailboat, like sailing out there to have a good time. It's like, yeah, it just, I don't know. I get pretty, I definitely like to, you know, I like to recognition for these things, and I'm trying to learn to put that stuff in check and not worry about it, because ultimately, and even in the times that I've sort of had this inflated ego, like ultimately I want to do the adventure for the adventure's sake. When we got back from Alaska, I didn't post. I think I maybe did one post with like a couple of photos that somebody else that Andy Cochran had taken, and was like, this was such a great trip, more to come. I was so overwhelmed by how cool is such a dumb word, like how deeply like motivating and beautiful and not life-changing, but sort of like mindscape altering, you know, emotionally change, like alteration of how you feel about being in the mountains and working with a team. Like everything was so huge on that Alaska trip. It was the trip of a lifetime, and we achieved certain objectives and were skunked by others and saw the biggest seas I've ever seen. And I'm captaining without the owner on board. And it was just like all these challenges that I got to face and succeed at, all these things. And it's like, I was way too overwhelmed to engage in social media about it. And I still have been too, like, I was like, I don't like, so ultimately, like I didn't need really any recognition for that trip because it was so fulfilling. And so, like, you know, I just came off of it just flying and could continue to relate with my friends and team, you know, crewmates that were on that trip.
Well, do you think not just social media, but the fact that like promotion is a prerequisite for running a business, that you get this feedback loop where it's like you feel like you have to promote. You actually do have to promote to get your customers. Do you think that sort of poisons our brains to then feel more needy for recognition?
Absolutely. Deb and I just had this conversation last night because she's like, hey, you're taking a week off of social media, off of Instagram, like, you know, you got stuff to promote. And I was like, it doesn't really matter. And in my business, it doesn't matter maybe the same way it does in yours. I mean, it all plays into like the, you know, sort of like your coverage on the internet general, right? Like if you like all these SEO people would say, like, you need a blog and you need it just to have content on the internet. So when people Google, you know, they're going to get your hit because there's all this flood of information. But of course, we're not in charge of those algorithms. Giggle it. That's our firing. But there's this thing that happened. You know, I said, she's like, I'm done with this stuff. So she's like, why don't you get Buffer? Like Buffer, I guess, is this program you can use like on your tablet or laptop and just post and engage without like being on the app, which is what I'm going to do, because I'm like, you're asking me to go on to this app. You're like, she laughed at me, but she's like, that's dramatic. But I was like, you're asking a recovering Coke addict to sell this Coke. Yeah. And I'm like, if I go to sell the Coke, you're going to find me dead on a pile of Coke. Like, I can't, like, I'm so fucked up by Instagram, like not in the way that like some of my friends have been mental health wise, but like I can't ignore it. It's like the first thing I open if I'm bored in a dentist's office. It's the first thing I open if I'm sitting waiting for my kids to come home from school. Like the app cannot be on my phone. I am a full blown addict and I don't know how to control it as much as I can set the timers and do the thing. And now when you're doom scrolling, it really is doom scrolling because everyone's posting like the worst news, you know, at least where I live, it's read as the worst news, and they are posting all this stuff. And I don't want it. I'm not here for it. I'm on Instagram for boats and boaty things and boat stuff. Like, so, but I'm getting all this other stuff, and it just isn't healthy for me. And I think, yeah, it compels, part of that. Even at the beginning of that Alaska trip, I was like, oh my God, this is going to make, not like explicitly thinking these thoughts, but like I know it was in my brain where it's like, this is going to make an amazing like post. Can't wait to post about this kind of thing. And then I was blessed with it being, such an overwhelmingly emotionally and physically challenging and fulfilling trip that I didn't care. And that's what kind of woke me up to like, oh man, this does not matter. And I don't get like, people don't come sailing with me because I have an Instagram following or because I post cool things. I mean, that's not why people sail with me. Like,
were you disconnected while in Alaska as well?
Mostly on the, once we got south of, I don't know. Once we got around the corner and started kind of getting to the southeast side, we lost connection pretty quick, and we didn't have like Starlink or anything on the boat.
Well, the reason I ask is because like you become, like speaking of Starlink, like we've, obviously are continuing to debate whether we install Starlink on our boats, particularly Falcon, because it goes further afield, and have resisted for all the reasons you just described, basically. But like there is a like inoculation period after you've been disconnected for X amount of time where it naturally does seem less important. And like this is long before we even had Instagram as ubiquitous as we have it now. But I'm remembering what you're describing reminds me of the way I felt after our first transatlantic on Arcturus back in 2011, where Mia, myself, and my friend Clint, we'd been at sea for 23 days. We get into this little village in Ireland. We go to the pub, and like I had a laptop then, but like I deliberately didn't check in with anything for like 2 days after landfall, just because I wanted to stay in that mental state that you can only get in after you've been sort of cleansed, so to speak. Like, and it's more, you need it. It needs, it's just like anything else, just like a long passage. It takes 3-4 days to get used to that. And then once you're used to that, you realize it isn't that important. And then you realize when you come back from 23 days away, it's like, fuck, I didn't really miss that much. And it's like, but when you're in the mode where you're constantly connected, of course it feels super important, and it's at the front of your mind all the time. So I very much am not looking forward to. I mean, I saw the first ad for it now on the I think the very first commercial I saw on during the Super Bowl was freaking T-Mobile saying that they've partnered with Starlink, and it's like, God, I thought this was like still 5 years away. Like, what the heck?
No, we've had Starlink for 3 years and 2.5 years, 3 years, almost 3 years in July. I said within the next 5 years this will be on our phones. I mean, I'm not saying I'm some sort of futurist. It felt like it was happening really fast.
But
I would say
now apparently.
Yeah, I mean, we have Starlink on the boat we live on. That's our internet source. We don't have it on True. And I like being on these. For us, what we do, like a Garmin InReach, is fine. We can get weather updates from somebody doing weather on shore because we're not offshore. We can get the weather updates. But I made a fatal on that note. I made a kind of not fatal, but I made what seemed like a small decision and ended a large mistake in Alaska, which was we were on the west side and we'd been in some big sea state, hammered, and people were like pretty seasick. Like half the crew were pretty seasick, and there was no wind to like stabilize or really sail. We're like motoring through like leftover like 15-foot seas with like zero period. It was just, oh dude, it was really, really sloppy.
That's truly the worst.
It was really the worst. And diesel fumes, the whole boat's getting like station wagoned, and the whole thing. But we had the choice. We were basically had a day left, and we could go explore one more day and scoot into this fjord that was kind of unknown on the west side, or we could cruise on, hit the hot spring on the west side and then scoot back around to Sitka a day early and go ski up behind town, like hitchhike through town and go ski on it doesn't matter. It's got a Russian name, but there's a cool mountain up behind the town that it's great skiing, which is what we did. And that skiing was fun and all that. But as we rounded the corner and just not to go up the fjord, we got cell service, and it didn't ruin the trip, but it ruined the moment. It like took everybody out. It was like bing, 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 bing. The phones were like all going. All of a sudden, faces were in phones, and it was just like, oh man! And it was a day early, right? You're talking about taking a couple days after being disconnected to like stay disconnected, and this was like a day early, and it just really stole the magic there for a minute. So
and
I don't know.
like, I
think Starlink on
know,
boats. Maybe you have Starlink, but like crew don't get to use it.
I mean, obviously that's what you have to do, but there is you can attest to this. There is. I mean, you just said it yourself. You're a coke addict in charge of, selling and guarding the coke. Like you can't. Anybody that talks about habits will tell you that the only way to truly control a habit is to change the environment. And if you're now in an environment where it becomes a choice instead of a requirement, then it just makes the calculus different. Like, it's I know, yeah, it's not a choice for the crew that are with us, but it's a choice for the staff. And like, I don't think I'd be able to resist that.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to use it. At some point for something, you're just going to be like, oh, just a little bit. And it's like, but also it's like, there's such a good argument for it and from a safe. It's such a good argument. Well, I'm just going to keep talking because when we edit this, it'll just sound like nothing ever happened.
Oh yeah. Fair enough.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, I said anything.
So
professional.
So, but like what I was going to say is like from a safety standpoint, like it's almost especially on Falcon, it's almost getting to the point where you can't justify not having it from like a medical safety standpoint. I mean, we had a medical issue on this Adrienne Swan 70 return transatlantic trip that I'm sure would have resolved in the same way with, traditional satcoms, because it's, you're still talking to somebody, you can still send text and stuff, but it was just, orders of magnitude easier to do a FaceTime with a doctor on WhatsApp and get real-time video medical advice. And like, that's a huge benefit, but it's just
huge.
Man, it's like, it's such a tough thing. And we basically decided at the beginning of, or at the end of last season, like, let's give it another year. One of the main reasons we didn't install it is because there's still I'm unclear on like the service, because it appeared that in the South Pacific, a lot of the island nations and stuff actually create like black spots for it where it's not actually allowed. Where obviously it would work, but like if you're in that region, it's like blacked out. So that was unclear whether it would actually work, how much it was going to cost, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now that we have this T-Mobile thing, obviously we're closer than I thought, that it's just going to be in everyone's phone and there's nothing you could do about it. So it's going to, ultimately,
I guess you just
not going to be mine.
Yeah, and I guess you just get a T-Mobile phone that goes on the boats. Because this is what I would do is I'd get a T-Mobile phone that goes on the boats, because then it's not something everybody else is logging into. It's just there but
I'm sure
for the crew to get weather and security measures.
I'm sure at least initially that T-Mobile's going to not work in the middle of the ocean. It's going to be tied to something, whatever. But like in a couple of years, all the networks, everyone's phone, it's just going to be a thing. So like, if I wait long enough, if I keep kicking the decision down the road, it's going to be made for me. We don't have to decide. It's just going to be a thing.
What I hate and what I think would be cool to create culturally is like, and I don't know how to do it properly, because everybody has to sign up for this kind of thing, and not everybody will sign up for that kind of thing. But like, I've been in my bunk on Eastbjorn on a passage on my off time and like watched an episode of a show or something. You know what I mean? When I wasn't able to read or whatever. And that's one thing to watch a movie or whatever. But like, just like, I'm just so, I don't know why it's different, but just like scrolling Instagram in my bunk in the middle of, the North Sea or something just feels so gross. Am I just an old man? Like, I guess I am. Like,
no, so I actually, I think yes and no. I read something somewhere on Starlink where it was an editorial in one of the magazines, and it was like justifying Starlink as simply the next, like everybody used whatever the technology of the day was. And they compared it to like a payphone. It's like back in the day, you did whatever you could to get to a payphone and make a call. But the difference is, I think that was a bad comparison. I understand the comparison of like you use the tech of the day, but it's not the internet is not a payphone is for communication. The internet is more than just communication. When you're passively scrolling, you're not communicating. You're just passively consuming your Coke, right? For that analogy, like it's different. It's not communicating with someone else. Like I'm all for that. Like, and I think that's why you said about the Garmin InReach or even this, the Satcoms we have now, where it's a back and forth text based. Like, I think that's the perfect sweet spot where you can still communicate everything you need to communicate, but there's no opportunity for the mindless, endless scrolling that the internet provides. Even watching a movie, while that's a step too far for me. I've never ever watched a movie or a TV show at sea. I've always just done books. And I listen to podcasts and stuff, but I think there is a fundamental difference. I don't think the two technologies are the same. It's different. And I don't think you're just an old man. I think it's different.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mostly sleep in my bunk.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that too.
But I've had, using scopolamine in the past, which I'm kind of moving away from. I can't read at sea. Like my vision is just like that fine print vision goes blurry. Which is fucking weird, which is why I don't want to use it anymore. But it's, I don't know. I just think about, I think that's an imperfect metaphor or imperfect comparison with the payphone, because it's like you say, it's a different technology. And also the amount of time we spend on it and how it's designed to like a payphone wasn't designed like, ooh, we're going to get them. That payphone is going to draw them in and they're going to call their moms as often as they can. You know what I mean? Like there's no, like, naturally you were drawn to a payphone to call home, but it wasn't like there was no technology. There was no flashing light technology. There was no algorithm technology to draw you in. We're against the tide on this thing. And so making deliberate decisions wherever we can. And I, we're talking about this in sort of in the context of being at sea, but where it comes back to this context is like, we're like, adventuring is about unknowns. Like people ask me to define adventure all the time. And I wrote about it in an article about our last BC sail to ski trip for a local magazine here. And I was like, adventure has to have unknowns. You can't be like, we're going on a afternoon picnic adventure. Like, okay, fine, you can say it, but that's not an adventure. Like, not really. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be some challenge. There has to be some big thing around the corner that you don't know. Like every time a sailboat goes to sea, it's an adventure because you really cannot truly predict the elements. I mean,
that's why you say, I'm a big advocate for the superstitious stuff, and you never say, if you look closely on the maps on the website on 59 North, and when you're tracking the boats, when you click on one of the boats, a little pop-up box shows you their current position, speed, etc., and then it says bound towards and the port, and then distance remaining. And you never say where you're going to. You say, I'm going towards there, and we'll see if I make it. It's like tempting fate thing to say, I'm going from here to here. It's like, well, you're trying to, but like, it's just, leave a little margin in there.
So it's an interesting argument with like the Starlink thing or whatever, the let's call it constant connectivity. Like, I guess with sailing, especially for only really for passage making, like you will always have an adventure because the sea is the sea, and regardless of how many real-time updates you can get, the sea is still the sea. But it does change the nature of that adventure in a way that like connectivity we used to go into the woods to disconnect regardless of the technology, right? Like think about Walden,
Yeah.
what, like he went to Walden to, of course it was like half a mile from his aunt's house who baked him pies every week or whatever, but he went into the woods to get away from whatever the technology of the time was, or the hubbub of the time, the rat race of the time, whatever it was. And if we can't go to sea or go into the mountains and disconnect from our phones, which is this thing that's constantly connected to us, like honestly, we're kind of fucked forever having any kind of real connection to that place. Like, so speaking from as someone who comes from the before times, which you do as well.
That's right. I know the before times. Yeah. Pretty cool that we're the last real, adult generation. You're a few years older than me, I think, but we're the same age for
I'm 43. Purposes. We're the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're dads.
So
we're dad age.
Exactly. Well, I was like a full-fledged teenager without the internet. Like that wasn't a thing. And certainly even when we didn't have the internet, it was a very different version of what it is now. It was more like the payphone version of the internet.
Yeah. I was just going to say it was a payphone.
Yeah. So I think, if we bring this full circle back to the business promotion kind of thing, I think my take and my gamble, if I speak for 59 North, is going to be that whether we install Starlink on the boats or not as a safety precaution or whatever, it will not be open for use. And I hope that becomes a feature of doing a passage with us and not a bug, so to speak. Like, I think in the sense that you need to control your environment in order to control your habits. I hope people knowing that they're going on a trip with 59 North will not have the temptation to check their phone. I hope that becomes an attractive part of it instead of oh shit, I wish I could use my phone in the middle of the Atlantic. That's my bet.
It's going to be hard though, man, because like if everyone has their own phones, their T-Mobile phones that connect, directly, and you can't. These are adults, unless you all agree to put them in a safe or in a lock bag or something and be disconnected. But then they want them for the camera and for their podcasts and whatever else. So you really can't disconnect from them. So either everybody agrees to put it on airplane mode, or like. It's kind of like saying just staying with the drug addict thing. It's like, let's take drug addicts sailing, as part of this sobriety thing, and then but we're gonna have a bag full of fentanyl. Like what? It just doesn't make any. I don't think it's controllable. Yeah. I think it will be that people will be on their phones, and some people will choose not to. And I will say this now. And I will stand by it, and I'll fight somebody over it. Like whoever decides to be off their phones will have the better experience. They will engage with what is happening at sea, and there will be people on your 59 North trips and on my trips who will. We used to go to Canada and didn't have service. Right. Like when we went to the San Juan Islands, we didn't have service, and it was a pain in the ass, and it was delightful. And now. I have Canadian service connected to my AT&T thing, so I'm just like fully covered, and so is everybody else. So even those little experiences, my week-long wine and cheese cruises, like have changed. But it's like the people who unplug and choose to read a book instead and engage with their watch partner and whatever else, like those are the people that are going to have the better experience. And it's just less and less people. It's like crazy because already the population of people that get to go on these trips and get to go to mountaintops. I mean, anytime I stand on a mountain, I'm like, how few people percentage wise in the world population get to do this? I mean, yeah, so few, you know what I mean? We're already this tiny population of people that get to adventure like this. Now take our tiny population and take that down to like probably 1% of people who will choose to be unplugged. And I'm not actually sure I'm one of them. I don't know. But like the 1% of people who choose to stay unplugged, regardless of having access, now that's an even narrower piece of society. And then like, I don't know. I think it has like a butterfly effect. If you think about National Geographic Society, and like these other like sort of adventure societies that like brought this to the world and people absorbed it. We have less and less people actually doing that, less and less people broadcasting. Well, more people broadcasting it, but in a bullshit way, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we had
Well,
cell
I think-
service the entire time we were in the Himalayas. The entire time we were on the trail in the Himalayas.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Was I going to say is like, yes, when the time comes that you actually can't control it, which we're not too far away from,
Yeah.
then you're 100% right. The people that can control themselves will have the better experience, and there's nothing else you can do about it. And like, this is not to say that like I think you and I together are probably, as much as we're bitching and whining here, I think we are pretty advanced internet users. I would say it's not like I love the internet and I'm on it constantly. So like it's not I'm not bashing against that. It's just you got to be able to separate life experiences sometimes when it's appropriate or not. And I think that's what we're advocating for.
Yeah. The Brits are still using dial. I think I might have totally.
Just keep talking.
It's
It's fine.
Okay, we'll fix it in post.
There you go. Just keep talking.
Yeah. Well, I think here's the thing. I think as well with hopefully I'm not talking over the top of you here, but I do like a lot of this technology is really good. I'm not anti-internet, and so I'm with you there. And we use the internet a lot, and can use it fairly well. I think like I want to be the inspiration for people. I mean, there's my ego going again. Can do as people, if we do choose to unplug at the opportune times to have the greater experience in the wilderness setting. I mean, being at sea is kind of the last wilderness setting in a way. And as soon as you have connection, I think you take away the wildness of a place. So if we can inspire, like, hey, we're in a wild place and we're going to unplug, and there's one person in a group of 6 that decides I'm going to do that with you, cool. Then they hadn't thought of it, and now they're going to do it, and it just has to kind of be what it is.
I think that's a great place to wrap this up. The whole point, because because of ironically the internet connection, my British dial-up here, but B, because I need to go and eat before this pub closes because I haven't eaten all day. But we got to do a part 2.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't talk about, which was the whole emphasis for this, the whole like reason for this podcast was you posted about your sailing to run trip, and I was like, that sounds cool. Let's talk about that. So we'll do a part 2 sometime, and at the very least, I can plug your sail to run trip at the top of this episode. But I mean, we've already killed over an hour here, and we're still going strong. So let's do this again soon.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's get together again. It's so easy talking with you. I love it, and hopefully it's interesting to listeners hearing a couple old dudes gab on about the internet, but there's adventures to talk about. I'm excited about the Sail to Run trip. I'm hoping we can sell those bunks. We've just got 4 bunks to sell. My friend Alexa, who's a running coach and personal running coach and a high school cross country coach, she's the one who bought Topaz from me and lives aboard Topaz. Right, I'm just looking over at the boat now. So right here in the harbor, and we're teaming up and going to do this. So it's going to be a super fun trip if we can sell those bunks and hopefully get out there. San Juan Islands, man, they're the dream.
Thanks again to Nigel, Jan, and BoatHowTo.com for sponsoring this episode of the show. Check out all their courses at BoatHowTo.com. Thanks again for sponsoring the show. Thanks again to WRI for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Go to WRIWX.com to get in touch for your next forecasting or routing need. On the Wind is the podcast about sailing, created by 59 North and hosted by me, Andy Schell, and also occasionally by Nikki Henderson, Jesse Zevelkink, and August Sandberg. The show is mixed and produced in Frederick, Maryland by Lee Cumberland. Ads are read by us, the hosts, and occasionally by 59 North's bosun Adam Brown and podcast producer Lee Cumberland. And once in a while, Mia. Episode artwork and website show notes are done by Laura Parent in San Francisco. The intro theme music is composed and performed by former podcast guest, sailor, and musician Cameron Dale, while the outro music you're hearing now is, of course, by our friends Storm Weather Shanty Choir from Bergen, Norway. We love hearing from our fans, so send your questions and comments to holdfast@59-north.com. And please do us a favor and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, hold fast.
And the horse, I made up me mind that I was inclined to go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. I made up me mind that I was inclined to go to sea no more. As I was walking down the street, I met sweet Angeline. She said, come home with me, me lad, and we'll have a cracking time. But when I awoke, it was no joke. I found I was all alone. My silver watch and my money too, and my whole bloody gear was gone. Was gone, was gone. My whole bloody gear was gone. It was when I awoke, it was no joke, for my whole bloody gear was gone. As I was walking down the street, I met Big Rapper Brown. I asked him if he would take me in, and he looked at me with a frown. He said,
last time you was paid up with me, you took up no score. But I'll take your advance and I'll give you a chance to go to sea once more.
once more, once more, to go to sea once more. I'll take your advance and I'll give you a chance to go to sea once more. Sometimes we're catching whales, me lads, but mostly we get none. With a 20-foot oar in every paw from 5 o'clock in the morn. And when daylight's gone and the night's coming on, we rest upon our oars. And oh boys, you wish that you was dead or snug with the girls ashore. Ashore, ashore, or snug with the girls ashore. Oh boys, you wish that you was dead or snug with the girls ashore. Come all you seafaring lads that listen to me song. When you go a big boating, boys, make sure you do not go wrong. You take my tip when you come off a trip, don't go with any horse. But get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more. No more, no more, to go to sea no more. Get married instead and have all night in bed and go to sea no more.